the world's first democratically elected Marxist president, and he was overthrown just 3 years later by his military. This is Salvador Allende, and he served as Chile's first socialist president after being elected in 1970. He was born in 1908 to a wealthy family in Chile, and he became a doctor at the age of 23, after which he became the union leader for doctors in his region. This was his first step into the world of politics, where he would spend the next 40 years taking up different positions, including being a minister and a senator. Allende wanted to demonstrate that socialism could work without a dictatorship. Up until this point in history, the main global examples of socialist states were authoritarian regimes like the Soviet Union and Cuba. Within Allende's Socialist Party, he was considered a moderate who wanted to take power through democratic means, and this was in opposition to some of the most extreme elements of his party who wanted to seize power by a violent revolution. Over the years, Allende ran for presidency 3 times unsuccessfully. He was popular amongst the working classes and young students, but he was opposed by the wealthy elites and the upper classes who believed that he would undermine their economic interests and feared that he would align Chile with the Soviet bloc. They also feared that under socialism, Chile would become another Cuba, living under an authoritarian regime and with poor living conditions. So Salvador Allende ran for presidency in 1970 against his opponent Eduardo Frei, who received over $2 million by the CIA to make sure that the socialists did not win. But Allende was successful, and in 1970 he became the world's first democratically elected socialist Marxist leader. He began policies of nationalizing major industries, including the copper mines and national banks. He also began healthcare, educational, and land reform. In terms of foreign policy, Chile had previously been aligned with the US during the Cold War, but under Allende it joined the non-aligned movement. Chile began trade and diplomatic relations with numerous countries which it previously had avoided because of their ideological differences. All of these policies threatened the US's political interests during the Cold War, but also its economic interests in Chile. This came at a time when President Nixon of the US had vowed to limit the domino effect of states falling to communism. But perhaps one of the biggest supporters of the idea of overthrowing President Allende was this man over here, who was US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. In recently declassified documents, Kissinger had highlighted that Allende's government was unacceptable and that the US should fully support a military coup in Chile. So in June 1973, a man called Colonel Robert Super attempted an unsuccessful coup against Allende. In August 1973, after the resignation of the army's commander-in-chief, General Augusto Pinochet replaced him. And it is this man who launched the military coup in September of 1973. On September the 11th, 1973, he captured the presidential palace and surrounded it with the military. Knowing that he could not stop the military, Salvador Allende then went onto the radio and gave his final speech to the people of Chile before entering a room in the presidential palace and dying at the age of 65. This successful coup left General Pinochet in charge, ending decades of Chile's democracy and installing a brutal dictatorship for the years to come.